Senior class, families, and friends of the class of 2023, I am excited to welcome this year's guest speaker, Mr. Bart Drakulich, a former Vicenza High School student, to our 66th commencement ceremony. Born in Frankfurt, Germany, to an American father and Dutch mother, Bart grew up on U.S. military bases in Germany and Italy. His father, Mr. Don Drakulich, was a VHS physical education teacher, vice principal, athletic director, and record-setting coach of the Vicenza Cougar football team, Go Cougars. Bart received many accolades at VHS, including varsity all-star athlete in football, varsity soccer, first-chair saxophone, editor of the Cougar Scene school newspaper, yearbook, and very occasionally made the honor roll. He is a Vicenza Cougar through and through. After graduating from Vicenza High School, he first attended the university in Munich, Germany, and then obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from California State University in Long Beach, California. He returned to Vicenza to marry his wife, Paola, and was hired on Sermer Ederle, where he created the tax relief office and worked as a budget analyst. He then moved stateside, and after a brief experience at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, chose to leave federal service in 2000 and move to Bologna, Italy, to accept his current assignment. Bart Drakulich is currently the Vice Director and Chief Administrator of Johns Hopkins University, Europe Campus, School of Advanced International Studies in Bologna, Italy. SAIS is consistently ranked as the top graduate school for the study of international relations in the world. Mr. Bart Drakulich has been instrumental in transforming and overseeing several major physical expansions of the campus into what it is today. He successfully shepherded the school throughout several major crises during his leadership, including the recent pandemic, for which he was interviewed in the Washington Post. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our commencement orator for the Vicenza High School Class of 2023, Mr. Bart Drakulich.
Thanks for that great introduction. I didn't know that you were going to read the whole thing. Thank you, Principal Warner, Vice Principal Tibbs, distinguished guests, and everyone here, especially moms and dads who bravely serve our country. Thank you for your service. Most importantly, congratulations to the Vicenza High School Class of 2023. I have a deep connection to Vicenza High School and to the community that surrounds it, so it is truly an honor to be your commencement speaker. Thank you so much for inviting me. I've worked at my university for 23 years, which, among other things, means that I have attended 23 commencement ceremonies. So I'm quite the expert on commencement speeches. Good ones, bad ones, short ones, long ones. In spite of Johnny's instructions to keep it short, buddy, I'm gonna go with, I do that pretty well, huh? I know him a long time. I'm gonna go with medium length today because I've always been a bit of a troublemaker. I guess you guys didn't look in my file, did you? So let's get to it. Sometime during my sophomore year, 7 Vicenza High School students got into a bit of trouble while participating in Band Festival at the 6th Fleet Base in Naples. I don't remember all the details, but suffice to say there was beer involved. They were bussed back to Vicenza immediately and then suspended from school. This was particularly embarrassing to their families, especially because their parents were respected members of our community. High-ranking NCOs and officers, teachers, and even a VHS principal. They let their school and their families down. I'm going to come back to these suspended 7 a bit later. This is what in the commencement speech business we call foreshadowing. Now, before I get on to the part where I give you life advice for future graduates, I want to talk to you about the immense value of 2 things you probably can't wait to separate yourselves from right about now: your school and your parents. There are things you will learn in your life that no commencement speaker can truly prepare you for. Hopefully, you will learn humility, because you're going to screw up a few times, and it kind of sounds like you have already figured that out from some of the previous speeches. I certainly did, but if you grew up on Commencement, you learn to pick yourself up and do better because your parents and your school gave you the tools to do so. Our teachers here didn't just teach us math or social studies, they built a caring community around us that made us smarter and stronger. When my classmates' parents were deployed, or when the base was on high alert after a terrorist attack somewhere in the world, we came together because we had a common cause: the safety and well-being of our community and our loved ones. Vicenza High School was the glue that held us kids together. Yes, we had cliques and competing groups, and my senior year we even had 2 football teams, Vicenza White and Vicenza Gold, believe it or not. But school, family, and community here provided a nurturing environment that tolerated us at our worst, but also brought out the very best in us. In fact, VHS made me and so many of my fellow graduates what we are today. Who are we? We are pilots, chefs, generals, television producers, and yes, university administrators. One of my closest friends from VHS runs a successful wine bar in Seattle. He was the son of the principal, by the way. Many speak 2 or more languages and have traveled to places our US-based peers can only dream of. But we are patriots because we have seen firsthand the American investment and sacrifices that make the world a safer place. VHS grads are globally minded, culturally savvy, and well-adjusted people. Well, generally well-adjusted, most of us. There is a Vicenza Cougar bond, and like you all, I am a Cougar through and through. My family arrived in Vicenza in 1976. My dad, Bart Drakulich, taught at the Vicenza High School for 2 decades. Everyone called him Coach Drac, because coaching the Cougar football team was what he loved the most. Dad's team broke a number of DoD school records, in part because he was a mentor to his players on and off the field. That included my brother Hank and me. He worked us hard, but the pain was worth it because we regularly stomped Naples, Aviano, pretty much every team in the league. I think my mom never missed a Cougar game, not one. And one of our greatest family memories is when my little bro threw me a homecoming game touchdown pass in my senior year. Mom almost fell off the bleachers. 3 years ago, Mom, Hank, and I got to watch his last Super Bowl with him in his hospital room in Colorado Springs just a few weeks before he passed. He was, and still is, my hero. Dad gave me some advice growing up that I want to share with you. It's from W. Clement Stone, a Chicagoan, like my dad, from the same rough neighborhood, the South Side. They both sold insurance, something my dad did in Vicenza when he had to take a 3rd job to help pay for college. Clement Stone was a rags to riches stories. From humble origins, he went on to become a wealthy man, a philanthropist, a motivator, and a teacher. He said there were 3 things everybody needed to be successful in life. They were knowledge, know-how, and inspiration to action. Let's start with knowledge. It's the stuff you learned in your classrooms at VHS, and hopefully we'll continue to learn from great teachers and great books, perhaps at a university, perhaps at Johns Hopkins University. If you're interested, let me know. I can put in a good word. If I hadn't learned to speak Italian, which I learned here in Vicenza, or to understand finance and business, which I learned in college, I probably would not be your commencement speaker today. Know-how is street smarts. It's the stuff that you learn outside of the classroom, from your community, from your family, from your friends. Know-how is gained from experience of failing, trying again, failing again, and then eventually, hopefully, succeeding. And it sounds like you guys have some know-how from what I heard earlier. Nobody owes you anything. Life is hard, and know-how is all about discovering what works and what doesn't, and applying what you learned. It's the school of hard knocks. Finally comes inspiration to action. I have a tendency to procrastinate, and I like to play FIFA on my Xbox. In fact, it took me a bit longer than I'd hoped to write this speech because I procrastinated by playing FIFA on my Xbox. My wife is looking at me angrily right now. Inspiration to action means getting off the couch and putting that knowledge and know-how to work. The type of person who has the first two but doesn't use them is just a smartass. Or, in my line of work, we call them professors with tenure. But this is live streaming, you said? Okay. But W. Clement Stone was from a different era, and while I believe his advice is timeless, I want to prepare you for a future that is unlike anything Mr. Stone or Coach Drak could possibly have imagined. Medieval map makers, cartographers, are said to have inscribed, "Here be dragons," on the edges of their maps to denote dangerous or unexplored territories. Whether you are ready or not, class of 23, you are venturing into a world that is facing extraordinary promise, but also great peril. Russia has invaded Ukraine. China has been expanding its influence around the world to rival that of the United States. Domestically, our national debt is soaring, our regional banking system and housing markets are in deep trouble, and our polarized cultural and political landscapes appear more fragile than ever. But there is also hope, because America is a country of innovators and inventors. Cutting-edge technologies like quantum computing, nuclear fusion, and of course, artificial intelligence will likely transform our future in ways we cannot even begin to fathom. Now, while it's true that AI may soon make it easier for low-rent terrorists to design bioweapons that could kill thousands, even millions of people, it's terrifying, Google it. AI is also revolutionizing healthcare through early diagnosis of disease and personalized treatment and drug development. And here's a cool thought. I wager that at least one of you will experience commercial space travel. Maybe many of you. If the ever-elusive nuclear fusion succeeds in creating cheap, clean energy, the possibilities for human flourishing on a global scale appear truly limitless. But humanity has a way of complicating things for itself. There be dragons as well. So here's a warning from a fellow cougar as you head out to explore the edges of the map. Be careful, stay aware. Pretty much everything these days is trying to manipulate you. Whether for money, clicks, or votes, companies, governments, and other groups are rapidly developing new tools for getting inside your wallet, your head, and your heart. Opinion is disguised as fact, facts are distorted, and important information is ignored or suppressed. Don't look over there, look over here. Artificial intelligence and deep fakes will blur the lines even further. So how do you discern what is true and how you should navigate this increasingly chaotic landscape? I think the answer is that you must never stop exploring. And what do I mean by that? At the most basic level, whether it be politics or economics or nutrition, get your information from multiple sources. If you read it in the New York Times, see what the Wall Street Journal has to say, even the New York Post. If you see something on Fox News, find out what CNN or MSNBC say about the same issue. I just threw up in my mouth a little. My advice is don't watch cable news at all unless something important is happening live. Question everything and do your own research. Watch YouTube videos, listen to podcasts, read Substacks, and when someone tells you that something is misinformation, it could very well be that that is misinformation. Double check it. And yes, this is all a lot of work, but ultimately, if you want to survive and thrive in these uncertain times, in those unexplored territories, you have to make that investment in knowledge. Remember that? It's hard work navigating these stormy seas, so what can you do if you're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated by this new post-truth society we're heading into? Take a deep breath, get away from your screen, and go for a long walk outdoors, in a park, on the beach, up a mountain. Study after study has shown that spending time in nature will ground you back in reality. There's a magnificent real world out there waiting for you to go see it. And then, read books. Old books. 50-year-old books. 100-year-old books. 2,000-year-old books. Read the Western canon. Read the Greeks and the Romans. Read books from other cultures. And yes, read the Russians. In my opinion, they were the best. The human condition was not discovered by Instagram or TikTok. In fact, these are poor substitutes for storytelling and the pursuit of truth. They are junk food in the information diet. There are great philosophers, poets, and writers out there that are waiting to be rediscovered by you. Please don't underestimate their power. Connect with the people around you in person if you can. This is one of the great gifts that growing up in this community gave me. My classmates and I traveled together, played together, got into trouble together. We built lasting human bonds. And here's something I wish I had learned at your age. Try being kind, forgive, show grace, be vulnerable. These are the antidote to the online world and will make your life better regardless of how others treat you. And then, last but not least, talk to someone who loves you. I don't have that person, you say? B.B. King, the great blues guitarist, once sang, and I'm not going to sing it, "Nobody loves me but my mother, and she could be jiving too." Well, trust me, your mother probably does love you. Dad too. Talk to them, or don't talk to them, but listen to them and spend time with them for as long as you can. They are the first line of defense, and whether you believe it or not, we'll always have your back. But even if you do all of that, life is going to have hard moments. There's no getting past it. How you face these will determine your path. In the interests of wrapping up my medium, longish commencement speech, I'm going to skip the whole section about the importance of luck, which, by the way, should not be underestimated, but by its very nature is out of your control. I'll end with one more key trait you will need to develop and live a good life. In addition to knowledge, know-how, and inspiration to action, you will need, and Sophia beat me to it, resilience. I learned this one from my wife, Paula, perhaps the best thing that Vicenza gave me. Whenever I begin to rationalize an impending failure, she gives me this look and quotes a line from the greatest, actually, Muhammad Ali. Here's what Ali said. "Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is nothing. Impossible is nothing." So, from one cougar to another, I need just a second. As I was saying, from one cougar to another, honor your school and your community and seek advice from your parents. It's who you are and where you'll derive your strength and your resilience. Be kind, but stand your ground. The world you are entering will require you to think independently and read everything you can get your hands on. Never stop exploring. Be a skeptic and, yes, even a bit of a troublemaker. Not a destructive troublemaker. Be disruptive and constructive. Do you remember those troublemakers who got booted from the band festival in Naples? Okay, I'm guessing you probably figured out that I was one of them. Son of the very angry vice principal, E-flat alto saxophone. That bus ride back to Vicenza after we got kicked out, a whole bus just for us, it was an absolute blast. But the weeks of detention afterwards, not so much. But here's what we did. We used that time in detention to practice, and we got even better together. We endeavor to make our family and our community proud. We formed a group and called ourselves, you guessed it, the Suspended Seven. And guess who won the Vicenza High School talent show later that year? Graduates of Vicenza American High School, you are ready. Screw those dragons. Go out there and cause a little bit of trouble so that future cartographers, when they draw our new maps, write, "Here be Cougars on the edges of the world." Congratulations, class of 2023.